A visibly frustrated U.S. president responds to the latest mass shooting, this time at a small college in Oregon. In our Music Maker segment, a closer look at Tanzanian artist Msafiri. And Facebook goes down again, and users panic. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, U.S. President Barack Obama is condemning the latest mass shooting to rip through the peaceful fabric of an American town. This time, a small community in the far western state of Oregon was the scene of the unspeakable tragedy. At least 9 people were killed during a gunman shooting spree Thursday at Umpqua Community College near the southern town of Roseburg. 9 others were wounded. VOA's Laditza Hoke has our report.
A clearly frustrated President Obama addressed Americans Thursday after the latest U.S. school massacre.
As I said just a few months ago, and I said a few months before that, and I said each time we see one of these mass shootings, our thoughts and prayers are not enough.
Obama lamented what he called a routine response to these routine shootings in the United States, especially by those who oppose any gun control legislation.
Right now, I can imagine the press releases being cranked out. We need more guns, they'll argue. Fewer gun safety laws.
The president appealed to voters to press legislators for reasonable gun control. Earlier Thursday, Oregon Governor Kate Brown spoke to reporters.
I know I am joined by my fellow Oregonians and Americans in profound dismay and heartbreak at this tragedy at Umpqua Community College. Facts are still emerging. We know now there were casualties and confirmed injuries. Our top priority now is the medical treatment for victims and the security of the campus.
About 100 law enforcement officers, including local police and FBI agents, descended on the Umpqua Community College campus after the shooting started. The suspected gunman was killed during a shootout with police. Witnesses say the usually peaceful campus became chaotic.
I hear screaming after that first gunshot, and then I looked out and I saw the people running, and I said to the teacher, we need to get out of here right now.
Umpqua Community College takes pride in its tranquil rural location. It was founded in the 1960s to help local residents of all ages prepare for various professions or for further education. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, in New York, the United Nations General Assembly is winding down, but not over yet. World leaders continue to speak on a wide range of issues. So what are the issues that have stood out? For a quick wrap-up, VOA's UN correspondent Margaret Bashir joins me live from the UN in New York. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Vincent.
What a week it was. But now tell us what really stood out.
Well, yeah, very busy week here in New York. I think we all expected Syria to be an important topic on the agenda at the UN General Assembly this year, but I don't think we expected Russia to begin airstrikes in Syria. So that certainly sort of took over a lot of the attention here this week after President Putin accepted a request from the Syrians to begin targeting ISIL in his country. And we just heard from the Syrian foreign minister about 20 minutes ago at the podium, and he, of course, welcomed, predictably, those airstrikes. And he did say that the Syrian government is willing to participate in some working groups that the UN is trying to set up that would sort of deal with some issues as a precursor, perhaps, to talks, to political talks. But he was very clear in saying that these would be very non-binding sort of discussions, but that Syria was willing to participate. So that was something positive. Mm-hmm. So I think now we've seen this urgency to get the political track off the ground because we're also dealing with the migration and refugee crisis in Europe.
Yeah, because Syria is a source of most of the refugees that are inundating the borders and shores of Europe. To what extent was this discussed at the UN?
Right. Well, we knew migration and refugee crisis was going to be another very big topic here this week, and it really was. And I think that the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini summed it up when she said that, she thinks now there's a little bit of common ground to start looking at this crisis. They've discussed many things, and they're trying to look at the root causes and the root causes of the Syrian conflict. So these two things are very much interlinked. So I think it gave a new sense of urgency and perhaps political will and momentum to try and get some talks off the ground.
For our viewers in Africa, they wanted to see what about Africa will be discussed at the UN. What is the issue that stood out most?
Right. Well, Africa may not have grabbed the headlines this week, but it certainly did remain on the agenda here. We had a very important meeting on the situation in South Sudan. The Secretary General was extremely firm and urged Machar and Kiir to get the peace agreement implemented. He told them, don't betray us. The international community has stood by you. We had another meeting yesterday on the Central African Republic where there was concerns about the political process, the electoral process being derailed because of the recent violence. There were meetings on Mali, on DR Congo. So Africa was still very much front and center on the agenda here this week.
Well, it's getting closer to the end, but what is still left on the plate?
Just a few more speeches today and tomorrow, and I think that's pretty much it. Everybody's winding down. You can feel the oxygen going out of the building. All the security measures are loosening up a little. The street in front of the UN reopened last night, so that's a sure sign that things are winding down and the big shots are going home.
But I'm going to insist that you stay with us sometime next week. How about that, Margaret?
Okay, Vincent. See you next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, Margaret. VOA's UN correspondent Margaret Bashir reporting for us live from New York. Now over to Africa. Nigerian military officials say at least 14 people are dead after 4 suicide bombers blew themselves up in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State, late Thursday. Officials say that 39 others were injured in the blasts. Witnesses say at least 2 of the bombers appear to be women. According to a military spokesman, the attacks occurred near the Ajilari railway crossing. The spokesman blamed the attack on the Boko Haram terrorists group. However, no one has yet claimed responsibility for that bombing. Well, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is calling for more robust and concerted action to end an eruption of violence in the Central African Republic's capital, Bangui, that has left more than 30 people dead and forced thousands to flee their homes. The clashes began last Saturday when the killing of a Muslim man sparked reprisals by Muslims on a Christian neighborhood and attacks by armed gangs on civilians. The UN chief recalled the way the international community came together 2 years ago and showed its commitment to end violence, protect civilians, and find a sustainable solution. But he says many programs remain underfunded.
Without the resources to help address security and stabilization needs and ensure human rights for all, the country risks sliding back into protracted conflict and suffering. More than anything, Central Africans urgently need concrete reassurance that peace and stability in their country remain high on the international community's agenda.
Well, elections in the CAR are scheduled for October the 18th, but are expected to be postponed. Now, the vote is meant to conclude a restoration of democracy after Muslim rebels seized power in the mostly Christian country in 2013, plunging the nation of 4.5 million people into a spiral of religious violence. Well, Burkina Faso is finally moving on after an attempted coup by members of the presidential guard. The RSP, its leader, General Gilbert Diendéré, was arrested on Thursday. Tensions boiled over this week as the army retook the RSP camp from soldiers refusing to disarm. And now that the unpopular unity has been dissolved, fresh challenges await. Emily Eob reports from Ouagadougou. Well, we'll have that report momentarily when we get it ready. We want to know now what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Now, coming up, Closer look at a Tanzanian musician, Msafiri. Stay with us.
What's new?
What's new? A rocket car called the Bloodhound, built to break the world land speed record of 763 kilometers an hour by going over 1,600 kilometers per hour. Mark Elvin is Project Bloodhound's lead mechanical engineer.
At 1,000 miles an hour, the wheels go over 10,000 RPM. That's a radial G on the wheel of 50,000 times the force of gravity.
The car will have to cover 1.6 kilometers in just 3.6 seconds, putting immense strain on the car and the driver.
So we go from 1,000 miles an hour to 0 in 1 minute. That requires a stopping force of 3G. If you take a family saloon, crash it into a brick wall at 30 miles an hour, that's a 3G impact.
To go faster than 1,600 kilometers per hour, the vehicle will have to travel faster than a bullet fired from a handgun. A date for the record-breaking attempt has not been set yet. For VOA's What's New, I'm Todd Grosson.
Well, welcome back. As we just mentioned earlier, Burkina Faso is finally moving on after an attempted coup by members of the presidential guard, the RSP. And now its leader, General Gilbert Gendera, was arrested on Thursday. Well, tensions boiled over this week as the army retook the RSP camp from the soldiers who were refusing to disarm. But now that that unpopular unit has been dissolved, fresh challenges await that country. Emily Eob reports from Ouagadougou.
After 2 days of tension, Burkina Faso's interim president himself came to greet the armed forces and thank them for their work in taking control of the camp where former rebel soldiers were entrenched and refusing to disarm.
Honneur à cette armée nationale.
Let's honor the National Army, which achieved a miracle to put an end to the rebellion without any human life loss, neither on the loyalist side nor on the rebel side.
The message is clear. Time has finally come for Burkina to put the presidential guard behind. The RSP, created by former President Blaise Compaoré 20 years ago in order to protect him, has long had a bad reputation. The 1,300-man elite unit was accused of being above the law and of being responsible for political assassinations and abuses. So when Compaoré was ousted last year after 27 years in power, voices from civil society soon rose to ask for the RSP to be disbanded. People took to the streets earlier this year to no avail. They protested again as soon as the news broke of an RSP coup to overthrow the transitional government. And then again this week when the RSP refused to disarm after a peace deal was agreed to.
It didn't come as a surprise that they refused to disarm. He has done nothing but lie to the Burkinabe people and killed them for the past 27 years, so it's not a surprise.
The plan is to reintegrate the RSP soldiers into the national army. The army claims most of them have already been reintegrated, but this is likely to be the next big challenge. The government and the army have called for people not to attack RSP soldiers and their families, but the resentment is huge and revenge attacks are a risk.
A real risk that the integration poses is to further fracture the military, especially now that there have been parts of the regular army that actually confronted militarily the RSP in the field of battle.
The transitional government has opened a commission of inquiry into the failed coup, which left at least 11 people dead and more than 100 injured. Emily Eob for VOA News in Ouagadougou.
Well, it's Music Makers Friday, and we take you to East Africa for a special treat. I'm joined by Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell. Heather, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, recently, on a recent visit to Kenya, Heather met and interviewed a number of great musicians from that region. One of them is Msafiri Sawoze. Let's hear what he told Heather. We'll talk about it later.
All right. Msafiri, I am in love with all of these instruments you have. First, could you tell me what this impressive instrument is?
This is a zeze. It's traditional
music instruments from a central part of Tanzania, from the Wagogo people. It's originated from the Wagogo people. My father was a musician as well. And, my grandpa was a musician. My father was a teacher, actually, at Art College in Bagamoyo.
A music teacher?
Yeah, a music teacher. Traditional music. So he was teaching, and then he decided to have like a family group, something that you could have like a special time, studying music, traditional, how to make it.
Are other members of your family in the band tonight that we're seeing?
Yes.
Who?
There's my brother as well and sisters.
So the sister, the one playing the marimba?
Yeah.
Okay, and the brother plays what?
Marimba and then ngoma.
Ngoma.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me all the instruments that are in the band.
We have zeze, and also we'll have marimba, irimba, and piano. And then we have those marimba ya kugonga.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of drums.
And yeah, so we'll have like local drums, ngoma za pipa, and then we have something very, very special. We call it ngoma ya wanawake. It's women drum.
What your next big step is in your career. What are you hoping to do soon that you haven't done yet?
I'm hoping to introduce traditional music in the world, and I'm sure that's the people that will follow my step, Yeah, that's
it. That's
yeah.
good. That's big.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Great stuff there, great stuff there. Now tell me, what is it that you found very, very impressive about this guy? You've spoken to a number of people.
Yeah, what I really liked about him was that it's a family thing.
Yeah.
And his father was a very famous musician, Hukwe Zawose, who became famous worldwide. And then he passed away, and so this young man's taken it upon himself to get the family back together and continue the family tradition of go-go music.
Which is impressive, because we're having the young man, and I have nothing against hip-hop and rap music in Africa that is really bringing in a lot of millions of dollars.
For sure.
But this kind of showcasing traditional music and trying to promote it and make it acceptable internationally.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. And they make all of their own instruments.
Oh, they make for themselves?
They make everything themselves.
Yeah. So they don't have to buy anything. That's cool.
That's one benefit of it, I suppose,
So a majority of those you met and interviewed are those who play this kind of traditional music, right?
You mean all of the artists I met in Kenya?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. I met one girl group that does pop, urban, kind of R&B music, and we'll see them later. But most of it was this kind of fusion of traditional and contemporary.
Which is really great, because we don't want it to get lost.
No.
And you're helping preserve that culture. That's great. Heather, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as usual, we appreciate your fantastic choice of music for our music segment. Now, to learn more about the talented Heather Maxwell herself and our VOA radio show, visit Facebook and type in the keywords Music Time in Africa. And you can see what time our radio program can be heard in your area and get more information about some of our featured artists. Well, the streets and lagoons of Africa's largest city, Lagos, Nigeria, are often clogged with trash, almost none of which gets recycled. One company is trying to change that. Chris Stein reports for VOA from Lagos.
Adeyemi Okwoga is on the hunt for trash. Neighbors bring out bags of plastic and aluminum waste. He weighs them and carts them off, free of charge. Okwoga works for WeCyclers, a company that picks up recyclables from poor neighborhoods like Ebute Metta in Lagos. WeCyclers co-founder and CEO, Bilikis Adebiye Abiola, says the city produces about 10,000 metric tons of trash daily.
So all those trash, the black bags, the pure water sachets that clog the drains, everything can be recycled. It's a raw material for people that have factories. So our goal is to collect all those materials using as cheaply as possible on a large scale and then give them to people that can use them.
At their nearby depot, WeCyclers sort and process their haul. They then sell off their recyclables to firms that reuse them. The startup has yet to turn a profit, but plans to press on and expand to also compost organic waste. The company awards residents points based on the weight of what they contribute. People can cash points in for gifts including plastic bowls, generators, and bicycles. Ebute Metta resident O.O. Oladepo says her neighborhood is cleaner.
Now that these people are working, I think they make Lagos clean. You understand? Because Lagos is a dirty place. Most especially this can, pure water, and the plastic.
So far, WeCyclers only works in 2 neighborhoods in this massive city, processing about 40 to 50 metric tons of recyclables each month. That's not even 1% of the city's daily waste. Chris Stein for VOA News, Lagos.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. What's with all the Facebook outages? We'll be right back.
Alors, tout le monde se porte assuré. Les Centrafricains doivent être extrêmement vigilants, ne pas tomber dans la manipulation.
Je pense que c'est bien. Moi, vraiment, je suis contente. Parce que c'est un terroriste.
An epoch-making ceremony. We want to thank the Muslims.
When the government have not filed educations, is not a virtue.
Today when I went there in the morning, I found it at 185. So it has really affected my business.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Everyone is talking about Facebook this week because the social media giant's app and website experienced a third outage in as many weeks. A company spokesperson told the website that Mashable, the source of the outage, was a configuration issue. The site previously experienced issues on September 17th and 24th. Monday's issues appear to be more severe than those that caused the earlier disruptions. Not surprisingly, the hashtag #FacebookDown started trending, and police departments in the U.S. and Great Britain tweeted requests that residents not refrain from using emergency numbers to report Facebook outages. Well, next up, a fan favorite designer stuns Paris Fashion Week. The Chloe show featured models sashaying down the catwalk, bursting with color and a new, youthful, sporty chic look in a collection which took many by surprise. Instead of the happy style dresses that have made the label so famous of late, models entered in sporting stripes, prime colors and tracksuits. These sporty items were complemented by long flowing skirts and leather bags with swinging tassels, a real Chloe take on a 70s style tradition. Well, and finally, a rock star welcome for India's Prime Minister in Silicon Valley. Narendra Modi is the first Indian leader to visit the U.S. West Coast in more than 30 years. During his visit to Google, Modi said Indian Railways and the tech giant would work together to install high-speed Wi-Fi connections in 500 railway stations. Earlier in the day, he held a town hall at Facebook. The Prime Minister is hoping to convince high-tech hotshots in the diaspora to bring their know-how home to India. Now, Modi boasts a whopping 87% approval rating in India and is the second most popular world leader on social media after U.S. President Barack Obama. He has 15 million Twitter followers and more than 30 million likes on Facebook. And that is what is trending today. Well, it's time for Friday's Sports Report, and we turn now to Sunny Young with the sunny side of sports. Sunny, what's going on at the Rugby World Cup?
Hi, Vincent. We're going to kick off to England with the Rugby World Cup. The two-time world champion Springboks of South Africa are warming up for their match this weekend against Scotland in Newcastle, England. The Springboks need a win to stay on course for the quarterfinals. They'll be captained by Fourie du Preez, who replaces the injured Jean de Villiers. De Villiers broke his jaw in South Africa's 46-6 victory over Samoa and returned home. Meanwhile, South Africa's neighbor Namibia looks like it'll be returning home after its final group match October 11th. The Namibians have lost their first two matches at the Rugby World Cup and are at the bottom of their 5-team pool. I encourage our Africa 54 viewers to check out the Sunny Side of Sports blog. The address is blogs.voanews.com/sunny. My latest blog post is titled Didier Drogba is making an impact in MLS, and I write about how the Ivorian football star is off to a great start with the Montreal Impact in his inaugural Major League Soccer season. The 37-year-old Drogba has scored 7 goals in his first 6 matches for Montreal. Let's call that sudden impact. I'm VOA Sunny Young, and that's the Sunny Side of Sports. Vincent?
Well, thanks a lot, Sunny, and be sure to watch the Sunny Side of Sports every Monday and Friday on Africa 54. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. We leave you now with more of the music of Msafiri Saweza. Thanks for watching, and good night from Washington, D.C.
Music is something that brings people together.
Music educates, it motivates, it's a bridge.
Music. Ali.
On
VOA.
qubanaha VOA waxaan ku soo gudbinnaa qubanayaal goosgoos ah oo xiiso badan oo ku saabsan arrimaha Soomaaliya, Maraykanka iyo caalamkaba.
haddaba qubanaha VOA-da kala soco website-keenna voasomali.com.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents.
A roundup of the world's top stories.
Here's a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.